What does live streaming mean? What does that mean?
We have to restream the meeting.
Oh,
Live streaming the meeting. Say hi to chat.
hello. Hello, chat. Can I get a poggers? Is that what they say?
Poggers.
Yes, poggers.
We're doing absolutely wrong.
I see some people that I know in the chat, or the participants at least, the Zoomers. Is it Zoomers or Zoomians or something? What do they call people who use Zoom? Let me know if you want me to start or not.
Yeah, sure. I think you can start whenever.
I could start. We're good. We're streaming. We're on the air. Okay, then I will start. Hello. Some of you
Streaming.
already know me. Some of you don't know me. My name is Kathryn. I also go by Casey, Kathy, Katie, or Bob. Some of you, most of you probably know me as Bob from the CS server originally. So whatever you want to call me, go for it. Totally fine by me, as long as it's one of those. So I am a current software engineer at ServiceNow, and I graduated from Cal Poly Pomona in 2020, but I started my school career in 2014. So I did spend some time in school. I started at a community college and I was able to take all kinds of classes. I was originally an art major. And when I took computer science, it was a weird situation. I was like honed in on, like the teacher was like, you're going to stay in computer science. Eventually, I did like it a lot, and I found the specific topics that were I was interested in. I was very interested in game dev. I was very interested in software engineering in general. Um, but my true heart and soul laid in project management. So I took a lot of time to try and learn a lot of like management um, philosophies, concepts, and like how to properly go about managing projects specifically around software. So project management is not necessarily just software. It's also related to like construction or mechanical engineering, engineering in general, or a lot of other fields like entertainment industry uses project management. Like if you go on like disney.com and look at like their seasonal preparations, they will have project managers like running these things. And it's not just strictly to software engineering, but I wanted to stay within the tech space. So specifically, I'm going to be talking about project management from like a agile scrum or software development process um, specifics. So I mostly was dabbling in that. I started getting a lot of certifications, and eventually one of the certifications that opened up, I was one of the first few students for the Google Coursera one. So if you are super interested after this, definitely recommend it. It is valuable for the hourly units for the CAPM as well, which is a like precursor to the PMP, which is a project management, like official project management certification. Like it's the certification. Um, so I definitely recommend if you're looking into that, just to take the Google Coursera one. That was really good. One of the other ones that I liked was on Udemy, but there's like so many of them. I would have to try to find the link. I am currently a software engineer, which is not a project manager. So maybe some of you are like, why is this person talking about project management when they are a software engineer? Um, One good stepping stone into getting technical project management is that you should be a person who has experience in the roles that you are going to manage. Um, I am currently a software engineer, and I probably will be a software engineer for like the next 5 years. I want to become senior level at the very least, have some like 10, like at least 5 years, like before I get tenured into software engineering. I still want to have that experience so that I am on the other side, because with project management, you often run a team, and running a team comes with the issues of that team. And if you don't understand those issues with that team, then you're bound to run into issues. So people will not like you. And you can probably go on Blind or any Reddit, whatever post, and you'll see that people are saying like their project managers or their engineering managers are a pain in the ass. So like definitely you want that experience. It's very important. To start off, what is project management? I tend to describe it as enabling a software or an engineering team to perform at their best. So whether that's through an agile process that you've laid out, or a waterfall process that you've laid out, or just some kind of other process because you like winging it that you've laid out, whatever process that you execute in order to meet a release schedule, whether meet deadlines or mitigate issues between your engineering team and the client or the product and management team. Those are all aspects of project management. And so I did mention product, which often gets misconstrued or misunderstood as product, or project and product get confused as each other. While that might be true at some companies might actually combine them as a role or as a standard. They are separate. So project deals more with the engineering team, and they will, I guess, defend the engineering team from the client or the user or the viability aspect, like marketing, like whether it's cost. Whereas the product manager will be that person who will look into it. They represent the product owner. If anyone's familiar with Agile, they represent the product owner in a Agile process. They have the best interests of the user or the client and the cost in their mind. So they'll measure viability, viability, or technically feasible and desirable. So if the user wants it, if it's technically feasible, viable, if they can actually execute this in a cost-efficient way. Those are those three things. Those are what product managers focus on, and project managers focus more on what is our velocity, how are we doing on our release schedule, how is our team, capacity, like is our team capable of doing, can we do, like how are we doing that. And they often will communicate and butt heads with each other. Other roles that are similar to product and project management that you might hear come up in engineering, specifically tech, is program managers. Program managers are essentially project managers on steroids, where they run multiple projects at a time. Some companies might have engineering managers in lieu of project managers and have program managers instead. At ServiceNow specifically, where I work, they follow that design where they have a product management org, they have a program management org, and then they have the specific engineering managers that will run specific Scrum teams, while program managers will do all of the velocity capacity for an entire release schedule. Don't know if anyone's familiar with ServiceNow and how they release their products, but we go through like a quarter or two every year. So we've got major releases, and the program managers will manage that. So engineering manager sometimes is the Scrum Master or the project manager of a team. So that's also another role for people who want to be a project manager. Like if I wanted to step into project management in the future, specifically at ServiceNow, I think that my first step would be going into engineering management, and then eventually pivoting to program management, specifically at ServiceNow. Otherwise, I would just look for project management, engineering management, program management. All of those are up to me. And one aspect that I definitely recommend people look into that I keep bringing up is agile. So I am saying a lot of this with the assumption because I do not want to go too deep without people explicitly saying that they don't know something, but agile is a standard in the tech industry, whether it's a like bastardized version of agile where they just kind of like combined a bunch of waterfall or throw in all kinds of buzzwords and call it Scrum. There's that agile. And then there's like true agile, which is like a flexible development process where release schedules can be a little bit more flexible, and communication and communicating your expectations is more what matches or follows with agile processes. So I think number one, communicating expectations is like an agile process. And if you understand that baseline, then you probably understand agile. Getting the nitty gritty is not really important. I specifically got into like becoming a nerd about agile development and methodologies and going into project management through my desire to organize things. And I did take a lot of time in school, as you know, so I did have a lot of time to do things or mess around and have fun. So part of that was running projects. I did some pretty fun projects. I've also ran some coding competitions, and those were both instances where I enjoyed the organizing part more than I did the development part. Like actually competing in coding competitions was not as fun as organizing a few teams to be shipped off in a bus to Riverside to compete. Like that was way more fun to me, like getting the logistics and organizing that. So that was my first introduction. So if you're someone who likes, I guess, organizing projects, or even people who run clubs, like if you're enjoying the club part, like organizing meetings, organizing or facilitating communication, helping people reach like better parts in their personal learning like development, I think that that's like a good path to explore is project management. If you're someone who's like, oh, meetings, hate those, or hate trying to figure out things, and I hate doing that, just tell me what to do and I'll code it, then project management is probably not something you want to look into. I wouldn't even suggest product management. It's definitely an aspect about project management is you are going to be a people person. Your job, or at least what I believe is your job, is to enable others to pursue their interests, pursue their, to meet release schedules, to meet their personal goals and things like that. So if you're unable to communicate, if you're unable to purposely get people together in a room, or even, I guess, Zoom call, because past COVID, we do Zoom calls. If you're not able to do that, or you hate doing that, if you hate meetings, it's not a fun place to be. I wouldn't even suggest engineering management. It's just not fun. People is a very big deal. You have to work with and argue a lot with product management. Some ways that I getting that practice at work is I do manage a lot of like our track or branching or Git branching. So I've helped develop a process for our Git branching in specifically our little tiny team or org. Obviously, it's not going to affect a bunch of people, but it does affect a few amount of people. And I do have to take feedback. I do have to hold retrospectives. I have to consistently work with others in order to meet our release schedules, because if our branching does not meet a standard, then we're basically screwed. Things don't get shipped out in time, and that's one thing that I am a little bit proud of, and it's been like a good introduction for while I'm at work, not being a software engineer, if that makes sense. I'm willing to answer questions because I just kind of info dumped a bunch of crap. Yes, What's up? I can see hands, but I can't see faces because my screen is very tiny.
Wait, so question, right? So you said a lot about like like online courses, right? Or how do you transition like textbook knowledge into actual practice?
Run a project. Just get one going. Start using some of the skills that you've learned in those classes and just start a project. Sometimes you can just get into, I hate saying this, but get with some friends, get some drinks, get into a room, and you're like, oh, it wouldn't be funny if we created this thing that does this, whatever, I don't know. And then you're like, hell yeah. And then, go with it. Actually follow through, go make that project. Even if it sounds like maybe stupid while you're sober, just go do it. Like, I definitely recommend that. Like, projects are the most important thing, not just for software engineers, like to develop skills, like actual practice, because you're never going to learn everything that you need to learn, or even the foundational knowledge in your classes alone. Like, those are always just introductory learnings of the subjects that you're going into. Like, even cybersecurity, you could take 10 cybersecurity courses, but if you don't ever apply that, you're never going to learn. If you take 10 million project management courses, if you don't ever actually run a team, you don't know what you're doing, right? You don't know how to run a team. Any other questions? You can open up the chat.
So what separates a good project manager from a bad one? Like, I know they're like the obvious, right? Like if they suck ass, like they're paid to deal with it, right? But what makes a good one versus like a great one, I guess?
A good what? Sorry, I missed that word.
A good project manager versus like a great project manager.
I can actually give some personal experience on this. So I think that a good project manager is someone that trusts their team, but doesn't blindly trust them. So if it's very difficult to blind or trust your team, if you are someone who's like, I love doing it the right way, like I have engineering experience. So sometimes we have people who have a lot of engineering experience and they're incapable of trusting their team to make the decisions, like technical decisions or solve technical problems. So like specifically you could say like, hey, I'm blocked on this thing because of whatever reason. And I've reached out to the people who are doing it, and I think we should go with this solution. A bad manager, I think, would be like, why are we going with that solution? Let's go into several meetings to figure out why that specific solution. I know you've already done the work talking with the experts about it, but let's go into this. Like, you're overstepping your bounds in that you're not trusting your engineering team to come up with a proper solution. As long as you can ask a few quick questions in that stand-up call or whatever call that you were in where they brought it up, that's important. A good manager would probably be like, hey, document why you did this. Like, how did this happen? Like, who are the experts? Like, make sure that we have this on point so that we don't have to go on like this big circle of finding who and what and why and figure these things out. They will enable a person to find a solution rather than be the person who gives the solution, if that makes sense. You'll find the right person to contact rather than say like, oh, you should put this in your code. No, you probably should tell them to contact this other senior engineer to help you with your coding. Putting too many meetings would be a bad project manager. Sometimes it's the other way around. They don't have engineering experience, so they often get into several meetings, or they trust blindly, and then you have engineers who are not meeting deadlines or meeting release schedules, or it's difficult to solve issues because the managers don't understand them. So like there's two sides of the coin. Like, you want to have like the happy medium of engineering experience, but not allow that engineering experience to cloud your problem solving or your team management, and then also not have all the people experience but no engineering experience, and have that become a crutch for your team because your team can't trust you to solve engineering issues. Does that make sense? Okay. Hopefully. I know it was a long answer.
I'll go. So I think you talked a little bit about the career path to become a project manager. I was wondering, since you mentioned like there are like differences between a product manager and a project manager, I was wondering how does the career path of a product manager look like? Because I was looking online, there are like some internship for like product manager internships. So I was wondering if you recommend starting as a software engineer intern and then transition into a product manager, or starting as like a product manager intern and then just continuing upon that.
That's actually a great question. Like product management is different than project management. You're not sometimes like at a lot of companies, you don't actually have engineers underneath you. Whereas at project managers, you might, or engineering managers, you might have a team directly reporting to you. So like, let's say you have an issue with a team member on your team, you would be going to your engineering manager. But with product, you don't have a team directly underneath you. You're more concerned by the client, it's like happiness, or the customer's happiness, or the user's happiness, rather than the engineering team's happiness, if that makes sense. It might help to have a little bit of engineering experience to measure technical feasibility and whether, like capacity, like measuring capacity without the need of a project manager. But I think that this is a personal opinion, pure personal opinion. There's a lot of people who are divided on Reddit or Blind or any other article that you find on Google or anything. Like personal opinion, I think that it's actually better to strictly go the product management route. If you know you want to be a product manager, start right away. Get those, start taking a lot of business classes. If you can, get an MBA, get understanding of like financing, or get understanding of like customer surveys, user desirability, get those like principles out of the way, agile development processes, waterfall development processes, get all of those out of the way while you're in school, or if you do a master's program, and do the product management internships, because that is the best way to get in there. Their pay scale and I guess like the leveling is very similar to like a software engineering to manager or architect. I would say product management is a different field that more business majors go into, but that's not to say that people in CS don't go into product management. So I do think that if you wanted to go into it, just go straight for it. I will say though, it's difficult to get out of product management. If you started doing it and you're like, man, I hate this. I hate my job. It's very difficult to pivot into software engineering or like even systems engineering or something like that. Like it's very difficult. So be very sure to do with that. Yeah, what's up?
So you mentioned you mentioned MBA, right? So question, I know like this is like the business one, right? I think so like if you wanted to be a project manager, should you go into a CS batch? Like if you wanted to get, so first of all, should you get, let's say, pursue higher education after bachelor's, right? And then second of all, what major should you like, I guess, go into?
So the thing with project management is there's like no strict major. I've heard of art majors, philosophy, biology, all kinds of majors, math, become project managers. So majors doesn't really matter. It's really what you've done outside of school. It's kind of like with CS. If you are in software engineering with CS, CS is too broad, too general for you to specifically have a go-to path. Like if you were to ask a biology major, what are you going to go into? They have a wide option. Same with CS majors. With product or project management, it's just another option for CS majors or any other major. Specifically with higher education, I still haven't given up the dream of going and getting an MBA. I think that having like business knowledge is important so that you have those difficult conversations with product managers or clients, because again, sometimes product and project are combined at some companies. But if you are having those conversations with clients and things like that, it can be very difficult if you don't have the knowledge or experience around business. So for me personally, I think that an MBA would be very useful because I do have the technical background. I have the technical understanding with my CS degree and the software engineering roles that I am in, but I don't have the business or the logistics side, right? If that makes sense. I don't have the client side or running surveys, public surveys, or things like that. Any other questions? And I do have chat open if anyone in the chat, the virtual people.
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
So I was wondering, how do you keep track of your progress or like document what you do? So when like you have an assessment by your manager or like even just sharing with your team like what you've been working on, like how do you go about that?
So for maybe I'm trying to understand, like if you're trying to understand your personal growth progress or for other, like for your whole team's personal growth progress.
Kind of like personal one, I guess.
Okay. So for managing like a team's velocity, there's often project management tools like Jira, Asana, Monday.com. I think those are the most popular ones. Those will be like managed through tickets. ServiceNow uses themselves, ServiceNow. So we have tickets within ServiceNow and then we manage those. And we'll have like, there's some agile methodologies like Kanban board, which you can track them, like what their states are currently at, like if they're in progress, they're blocked, they're being released, or like they've merged and they're ready to go. For personal growth progress, the way that I've always handled that is like I write notes, and I usually, like, whether it's in like OneNote or Notepad on my computer or like a physical notebook. I have a physical notebook where I just write a bunch of notes. And I'll say like, oh, little Susie here. Like when I run projects with students as well, I like write little Susie, like things that they're really good at, things that they need to work on, things that if they ever ask me for feedback, that I would tell them. For my personal things, like whenever I'm proud of something, and this was actually told to me by a mentor, I think 3 years ago, like whenever I'm happy or proud of something, I write down what I did and like in detail, like what I did. Because when you have those growth conversations with your manager, eventually you're going to tell them, they're going to ask you like, oh, what, like, how are you feeling? Whatever. And you can say like, I'm really proud of this. Like this past year, I did this, 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 and this. And it puts in their perspective, like, oh man, like they did some really awesome shit this year. They should get a promotion, like, or like a better raise or whatever. It like puts pressure on them that you are like a valuable member. And it keeps that in their mind fresh, because no one's gonna watch you day to day, like what you're doing specifically every day. But if you keep track of that, then perfect. Super useful for those growth conversations, like raise conversations or promotion conversations. I hope I answered both okay. Awesome. Yeah, what's up?
Wait, I hope this doesn't echo.
There's
Wait,
an echo.
so does that apply to like software engineering jobs? Like keeping track of your own progress?
Yeah, all jobs. Whether you, even if you were working at Target, I definitely recommend it. Like it's a good habit to pick up. I think I got my promotion at Petco really quickly because I was able to highlight what I did in the 2 months that I worked there. So I became a manager in 2 months, even though it was my first job that they knew of. So I definitely recommend. Any other questions? Any questions? Yeah, what's up?
How would you deal when you're like falling behind a deadline? Basically that.
If you're falling behind a deadline, hopefully you haven't fallen behind the deadline already. But if you feel like you're not going to meet a deadline, either as a software engineer or a project manager, you need to speak up. You need to manage those expectations. One of the hardest things that a lot of junior people do, and we had this issue with our interns, not last year, but the year before, where they weren't speaking up about their struggles, their blockers, their issues. When you have a issue, it's not, don't take it personally. Don't be like, oh, I'm a failure. You're a failure when you fail to communicate that you're running into issues, if that makes sense. Running into issues is one thing, but if you fail to communicate that you are, that's when you've reached the point of failure, because we can't help you. Project managers can't help you. You've now affected the whole team, not just yourself. It's like proactive communication is important to prevent those issues. So if you aren't meeting your deadline, sometimes we can push the deadline, as long as we haven't meet the deadline. Like, let's say the deadline is in 2 weeks and you're not sure if you're going to be able to finish in 2 weeks. So you tell your project managers in a stand-up call, like, hey, this is going to take a lot of time. I think this is actually not a 2-weeker. This is like 4-weeker for whatever reason. I'm worried that I'm not going to meet the deadline. Like, what is it that we can do to mitigate this issue rising? That's when the project manager can say, hey, I will send this super senior architect guy to aid you in writing this thing. So you could divvy up the thing, or maybe we need to break this up into tasks. Like, maybe this is too big of a story. Obviously, if it's 4 weeks long, it's too big of a story, but let's break this up. Or, hey, let's talk about it. Like, what are the issues that you're running into? Why do you think it's going to take too long? And then sometimes if you're really, really, really lucky, they're like, hey, don't worry about it. That deadline's not important. We'll just move this to the next deadline. I'm going to say that's rare, but those are like options. Those are like mitigating the issues that are arising from not meeting the deadline. If tomorrow's the deadline and you've ran into an issue and you're like, I'm not going to finish, you need to speak up as early as possible. Generally, those are the cases where they're like, how did this not come up earlier? And then you get like a retrospective and a slap on the back from someone who's like, yo, what the heck happened? Like, why? It seemed like it was good in the stand-up calls every day. You were saying that you were going to finish by the deadline, but that the day before the deadline, you didn't finish. Like, what happened? So basically, ample communication is the most important part in that case. Yeah, what's up? Oh,
With person B, him or? Yeah, I'll go with you.
yeah, pink shirt.
Alright, if you're in a position of like a project manager, how would you let your teammates know, like if they're falling behind without making them feel overwhelmed?
Ooh, that's a good one. I don't know. I think
I'm managing a project right now and like I'm kind of struggling with doing that. Sometimes I feel like I'm pushing too much on my teammates and they're feeling overwhelmed. But sometimes the other time I'm feeling like the team is not catching up to speed. So I wanna know what your position and your take on that is, so I can like apply it to my own, like, you know.
it is a loaded question. Like, sometimes if your whole team is overwhelmed and they're overwhelmed constantly, it could be like a velocity thing. Did you commit to a deadline too soon or whatever? Like, it could be something that specifically you're committing to a poor deadline choice, or we failed to communicate the velocity. Another way is to tell them like, hey, maybe they're slacking. Like, you actually think that they're slacking. Communicate either individually with the people who you think are the biggest slackers. Like, hey, I've noticed you haven't been contributing as much and I'm worried about your commitment here. Just want to get a touch up. Like, is there something that I can help you with? How can I improve the current status of your tasks? Like, are we doing okay? Have like that touch base. If it's the whole team that's struggling and they're whatever, you could just put like up a reminders like, hey, reminders, here's what's at stake. The deadline is whatever, but here's what's at stake. Like, if we don't make it at this point, like, this is a bad reflection on our team as a whole. It's not just a bad reflection on you. So if you are a team player, you guys would step up to the plate. Like, I think that's what I would be doing. Of course, other people might have different or personal qualms with that decision making or like that communication method. But I generally like to do more personal, like go to the person and talk to them and ask them like, hey, what's going on? Rather than like a overarching, if the only time I do the overarching thing is if it's an everyone issue. So hopefully that's helps.
said it was a great answer.
Yeah, thank you for that answer. Do we have any other questions?
Wait, yeah, okay, so this might be kind of goofy, but so you know, like, oh, you know what? Actually, I think you should answer
Okay.
this first.
Yeah, there's one in the chat that says, can you be a people person and an introvert?
Yes. Introvert just means that you need time away for yourself, right? It's different if you have social anxiety and you're not able to have the hard conversations, because sometimes someone will go to you and be like, hey, my brother committed suicide and I'm struggling to commit to my changes and things like that. You're gonna have to communicate like, oh yeah, that makes sense. And then when they still don't meet those deadlines, they still don't meet expectations, and it's over several months, you're gonna have to have those really hard conversations. Like, yes, I understand you're going through like very difficult things. Like, we do give leeway. We gave you time off. We've been a little bit less hard on you. Like, we've given that, but there's a limit. There's some people, like with people, there's the issue that you're going to have hard conversations. Especially with layoffs. Oftentimes it's not just the AHR person that's in the call. You as the manager, as well as the HR person, and maybe multiple HR people are in the call to say, hey, sorry, you might not be able to feed your kids because if you don't find another job, but you're laid off, right? You're gonna have to be that person. Like, an introvert is okay if you're okay with dealing with people and having those hard conversations, because that's like one of the part of being a manager. You also have to get into arguments with people. You have to be confrontational. Like, if someone's saying, hey, I want your engineering team to do this XYZ thing, but the capacity of your engineering team can't be met for their demands, you're gonna have to argue with them. You're gonna have to try to get to a compromise. You can't just be like, oh, okay, I'll try my best, and then go and do that. A lot of times people will complain about managers who do not defend their team. They don't stand up for their team. They don't properly communicate to upper management. They just take beatings and then beat their engineering team. That's not how things work. Upper management relies on the lower management to communicate expectations properly. If you just take things at face value, you're not properly communicating your engineering team's capacity, velocity, anything. And that becomes an issue. So you have to be confrontational and able to have those difficult conversations. But yes, introverts can become be a people person and work as a manager. There's lots of introvert managers, and I have one. Okay. Yeah, go ahead, Tony.
Wait, okay. Actually, wait, kind of forgot. Wait 1 second. Okay. So in a project, right? You know how the project manager's at fault when anything bad happens, right? Like, or like they get put the blame, right? Or is that true or is that not true?
It depends on the situation. If like I said, I keep saying communication. If you failed to communicate expectations, yes, the project manager gets the blame. If your team is failing to deliver, oftentimes project manager, engineering manager, whatever, gets the blame. If you promise to the product team or anything like outside sources, like as a program manager, say like, hey, we're going to be able to complete all of this for this deadline, and I'm 100% sure of it all the way up until the deadline, and you don't deliver, yes, you'll get the blame. But if it's like specific things where your engineer or something committed some crazy thing on prod or decided to drop all of the database on prod or something, I don't know, even if that's not even possible, but unless you have a really bad setup. But if a specific engineer did that, something crazy, that would be on them. It's not like it's not your fault for doing that. If people are, your retention policy, like sometimes your retention rate is not very good, it might be on you. But it also might be on the upper management and things like that. So it really depends. Were you going to have a follow-up question to that, or was that the question?
You answered the follow-up question.
Oh, okay. Yeah, what's up?
I have one more question. It might not be related to project management. Actually, it kind of is, but so the situation is like, okay, you have a team that mainly works on like, REST API endpoints and stuff like that. This is a little bit of a specific example, but like if, for example, you need a feature that is implemented on their code base, but it's using a different technology, for example, like something like they need something like event handling with something like RabbitMQ, for example. How would you convince them to learn those new technologies and like to do those kind of tasks? To like do tasks that involve technologies that are slightly different or completely different from what they're usually normally use and what their normal workflow. Is that something that's bad, or is that something that we can like discuss more like I don't know. I don't quite know how you would kind of like convince them to be able to take on that task.
So one benefit in like a professional environment where you're doing it for money is like this is part of your job. Like you're an engineer, you need to learn. Like I don't know why you're hesitant to learn. If it's like a student project and students are not motivated to learn new technology for whatever reason, which I do run into a lot when I'm running student projects, it's like, why are you hesitant? I tend to like have those one-on-ones with those people and I ask them, I'm like, where are we at? Why don't we want to learn? Like you're assigned this thing and you like as an engineer or as a student, it is expected like once you have a job that you're going to be learning. Like picking an engineering field, not just software engineering, you are going to be fundamentally committing to learning for the rest of your career. The industry changes, the world changes. What you learn in school is, honestly, always a few years behind the actual industry. What Google is doing is not the thing that you're learning in school because the people who can teach you these things are at Google. They have not released that information yet. So you are going to be behind. If you can't learn in a project setting, whether that's with students or in your professional environment, you are bound to fail. You picked a thing that you're going to have to self-learn. You're not going to be in school. So if someone was refusing to learn new technology or refusing to learn new things that was necessary to execute the tasks that they were assigned, I would ask them why. What's the holdup? Like, what is the reasoning here? Do you think that someone's going to teach you everything when you get a job? Do you want to not practice this while you have the ability to do this with no expectations of meeting a deadline for monetary reasons, like you're going to get fired and lose your home? Like why are you hesitant to learn things? And let's try to address those first and then get you to learning those things because that's what's needed to complete your task. And then there's a chat message as well. Oh, this is a different question.
Yeah, so we have a question from chat that reads, have you ever found yourself bumping heads with a team lead who has different expectations or instructions for their team? And if so, how do you deal with something like that?
I regularly run into that issue, believe it or not. Like I said before, I manage a lot of branching on our team. And for some reason, Git is a magical, spiritual, pure magic. Like no one understands it for some reason. I don't know why, but because people do not understand Git, we often have like really weird suggestions for our branching that upper management. I have battles. I constantly am getting into calls with my director and my senior director and lots of managers. Like the whole call is just me and then a bunch of directors and things. And they are trying to tell me to do something completely wild, like reset a branch. I don't know if anyone knows Git, but reset a branch off of a different branch and then do a merge with that specific branch into that. And it's just a waste of time and it doesn't make sense. Like, why are we doing that? No, why? That's not how Git works. Same with cherry picking. We keep, for some reason, doing Git cherry pick, where we're cherry picking individual commits to another branch instead of doing a merge. So let's say we have to merge branch A to branch B. We need all the commits that are in branch A to go into branch B. Upper management's like, oh, it's a lot safer. Let's just do get cherry pick for each individual commit. No, why? Why are we afraid of using a merge commit? Why are we afraid of doing a merge? I don't know. So I often do butt heads fairly often for those kind of conversations. And honestly, it takes a certain kind of person to be like, I guess fighting up. So I don't necessarily recommend this for everyone because some people might just fold entirely. If you're someone who has a strong personality and is capable of arguing without getting too heated to the point where you start throwing hands, then yes, I suggest you could totally go at it, like argue your heart out. I think it's very important. So when they're telling me to do these cherry pick shenanigans, I'm often like, I won't do it. And like, good luck finding a person who knows Git enough on our team to do it. Either we're doing a merge, which is the proper thing, and here are all the articles, or we're not doing a cherry pick. If we're doing cherry picks, you're gonna have to tell every one of your engineers and our whole entire team is gonna go on downtime and having people cherry picking their individual commits. I'm not gonna sit here and have my entire day wasted just by doing get cherry pick this commit, get cherry pick this commit, and opening up a separate PR for each individual cherry pick. That is absolutely asinine. I don't care how safe you think it is. That's not how Git works. I will argue to the ends of the earth. But I understand that not every person can do that. I think on my team, most of my team members aren't willing to get into those calls. So if you're willing, if you're okay with doing what people do and like settling, if you're not someone who gets like a grudge and physically hurts doing the wrong thing, then just settle. Like sometimes there's battles that you can't win. But if you're someone who will fight to the end of the earth and die for the right thing, argue. Just come up with facts, like come up with resources, come up with reasons. Don't just be like, I don't want to do it because I don't want to do it, of course. So yeah, I butt heads a lot, especially with design choices. Sometimes like people will love throwing in JavaScript like programming into our Java code. And I'll have to argue with them like this is not appropriate in their code reviews. And we get into a call and eventually like one of us folds. Like one of us finds the reason why we do it. Like if they don't have a reason for why they have JavaScript like code in Java, oftentimes I'm the winner here. Like just use normal Java code. We don't need 17 streams attached to each other. That's not necessary. We're not JavaScript coders in Java code. It's backend. We're all you're doing is pulling some information and filtering and like that's it. You don't need to go crazy. So if they don't have a reason, oftentimes I win. But so obviously I've been wrong before, so I've had to fold. I'm like, okay, fine, we could do this crazy weird JavaScript crap in our Java code for this particular case, but usually let's not do this. Just have reasoning. Arguing is a normal thing about engineering, is like people have different opinions, and you'll always have that issue, even in other fields. Hopefully that answers the question without being too winded.
Yeah, I think that was a really great answer. I know.
Using JavaScript for everything.
I know, like there's a term code smell, right? Where you describe what the Git repo sounds like Git smell. Like I don't know, it's like kinds of anti-patterns. It's crazy.
Oh no, it drives me bonkers. They upper management is very honed in on using cherry picks. I don't know if anyone knows what cherry picks are. It's like where you take a specific commit and go to a different branch. So like, let's say the commit is on branch A, you do git cherry pick that commit SHA, and you're on branch B, and then you've taken that commit and specifically put it on that branch. They want all of the branches on branch A in branch B, but then they don't want a merge commit. They're like, the merge is scary. So instead they're like, just do git cherry pick for every single commit. That asinine. I don't understand. Whatever. Not my thing. That is a battle I've been fighting for like the past year, by the way. I have so many qualms.
No, That's wild. I guess, do we have any other questions? I think we don't, so we are actually getting towards the end of our meeting, so I'm gonna post the sign-in link. And somewhere we have the QR code as well, let me,
Yeah, and I mean, like, if anyone doesn't want to answer or ask questions in like an open forum, they can always message me. I love talking.
Can you just see me expose the internet, so the people.
It's the camera link, under,
Okay.
no.
Is it this one?
No.
Is it not this one?
Go down, go down.
Okay.
It's that one.
Oh, okay. Well, let's post it in the chat as well.
Oh, yeah. Laptop, can you post it?
Yeah, I got you. Wait, I don't have this.
Okay, not in the Zoom. There, I'm not even there either.
I'll probably just warm link.
Wait, are we muted? We're not muted.
You're not muted.
Thank you, Bob.
Yeah.
Be sexy.
What?
Be sexy.
Alright, yeah, our logo, right?
The logo.
But yeah, sign in link, also follow our socials if you don't already. If you sign in, I think you get club points, there's the end of the semester. Yeah,
Yeah, thank you guys for having me.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course. I do have other meetings. Unfortunately, I've been in meetings all day, so I will be hopping out if you guys don't need me. But if you have any other questions, feel free to message me. Bye, guys.
alright, thank you.
Thank you.